So I did not pull together a slide deck, so I'm going to show off Katie's lovely graphical design expertise, which is much better than anything I could produce, and just walk you through some of the community profile for ISMIC. To give you a little bit of historical context that didn't quite make it into this document, ISMIC was started in 2016 or so by soil scientists who wanted a better community and more integration on how soils were being modeled. So soil modeling typically falls into ag, hydrology, biogeochemistry buckets. And those modelers, while there's some historical shared context in the model development, they tend to go to very different conferences. They tend to interact with very siloed interactions. So the concept when ISMIC was convened was to provide a space that would just focus on soil modeling and give folks the ability to crosstalk these models in a system that's actually really integrative. So soil, I'm a soil scientist, so soil sort of play a lot of roles across a whole bunch of different processes. So all that being said is it was initially envisioned as a conference, and then it sort of evolved from there into this working group and science panel structure that I'll talk about a little bit in here. So we've got about 50 core members that sort of interact in between these conferences. Conferences themselves tend to draw between 100, 200 researchers to present. We have transitioned to online with COVID. There's great dissatisfaction with this, and the members are looking forward to moving back in person once we can travel again. We alternate between a US location and an international location. So the conference is every 2 years. So every 4 years, we're US centric. And then we go Europe. I think we were in China. We were supposed to be in China this summer, and I think we're going to do China in 2022. And I think there's also been some talk about holding a conference in Africa. So we try to hit a little bit of international breadth there, although I don't know the history of why we alternate with a US specific site. For the most part, our content that's not an in-person conference is open. So I think that's why we've got this highlighted as being predominantly a member sort of subscription model, because all of our in-person conferences do have a fee associated with them. So since that's how we center our activities, that's reflected in this membership firewall. So we have this person we call a managing director, who's not me, who sort of takes on the role of both a lot of the administrative support and some of the community management as well. That role is sort of augmented by an executive board, an advisory panel, and then co-chairs for these different science panels. So it's sort of your typical academics society organization in that context. Like I said, we primarily focus on this conference that happens every 2 years, but we are augmenting that with some online working group activities, looking to generate either web resources. For example, there was a group that stood up a couple of years ago that sort of aggregated all the soil, sort of an index of soil models. So what are all of the models that are out there, and how can we access them? I am not keeping an eye on time, so I'm hoping someone's going to break in when I start hitting my time point. Sorry. Great, I've got thumbs up from Lou, fantastic. Sort of building off of that, we're all researchers, so we all want to produce original research paper. That's the coin of our realm. So some of these new working groups, like the one I'm leading, are very focused on conducting sort of collaborative research. Again, because you ask a group of scientists what they all want to do together, and everyone wants to create new knowledge. And so that's sort of the goal of the organization overall. And yeah, so success looks like a better understanding of soil functions and a more connected research community. So again, ISMIC was convened to start breaking down those silos in soil modeling in general, even though that sounds like a really specific topic. It's actually quite broad. And so that's what we envision success looking like. Our funding structure is we have a lot of in-kind support from this German organization that I'm not going to try to pronounce. So that this is the managing director is employed out of this center. So we're very reliant on that funding stream for his administrative time. Yeah, we've been sort of thinking, again, something that didn't quite make it into here is the science panels trying to think about how to set expectations for what it means to chair one of these science panels and how to sort of cross-talk the deliverables from the different working groups. Right now, things are very kind of grassroots organic organization. That means that it's difficult to keep sort of tabs on what's going on and who's doing what, and what's maybe fallen off of people's radar. So that's sort of what we're struggling with right now, is how to maintain momentum for these activities that are not directly related to conferences. Let's see, what else? I'm actually going to open up the chat and scroll down. Oh, awesome. Right, so financial stability, like I said, we've got a lot of support from our German research institution for time. Lack of clarity on community goals. So thinking about, okay, the conference is a fantastic thing to organize around. What does ISMIC look like outside of that conference context? Volunteer staff burnout, and then unclear governance structure and onboarding. Again, because we were sort of rooted in this very in-person conference meeting, thinking about how you can engage with ISMIC outside of that structure. And even if you're in person, how do you sort of ramp up to being more involved or ramp down to being less involved with ISMIC in a way that's sort of transparent and sustainable. One of the things that sort of emerged when Roland and I were going through this interview with Sarah was I brought up, well, onboarding is a little bit of a problem and it's not quite clear how the governance is structured. And Roland's response was quite German. Well, you should read our governance documents. That's all in there, Kathe. What more do you need? So this concept of maybe targeted communications and targeted audience, and thinking about who our membership is and how our programs support it. These are a bunch of researchers who got together and said, hey, we should talk more. So intentions are good. The nuances around community organization are things that I think we're still struggling with. And so for that, I think I'll take any clarifying questions before handing it back to Katie or Lou. All right.
Yeah, unless there are any questions. Oh, Stephanie, did you?
I did just think of something. I'm curious because I'm one of the people who went through one of these profiles this time. And so I would love to know what you think was the most useful and liberating thing when now that you see this out there, what's the thing that it gives you?
ISMIC or me personally?
You as a representative of ISMIC.
So I think that one of the things that this did highlight for us was just how different, or for me, how different sort of what our organizing activity was, this conference, versus the online engagement aspect of it, and that those are really two very different modes of engagement and community building. So I was part of the first conference that ISMIC convened way back when I was a brand new postdoc, and I haven't really been following their conferences since then. I actually think the first conference before we were formally incorporated was like 2015, 2014, something like that. So coming in and having engaged primarily online instead of going and presenting at the conference has been an interesting experience.